So today's tip is going to talk really about the driver and how we can make it a much better club for you when you go out onto the golf course. And we're going to go through an understanding of a few areas. Okay, one, the design of the club and how that will help you to get the results you want. Two, your setup to fit that design and how that's going to make it easier to get the power going fully into the ball and maximize your energy. Three is important, is actually how much clubhead speed you're generating to see if the driver will actually work. And then work a little bit on tempo. What I always feel with golfers with this club is their tempo goes a little bit out of kilter with what they're doing with their other clubs. So priority is a little bit is to understand, how is the club designed and what is it going to do to help us to hit that ball a little bit further. Now, pretty much every golf shot you play hitting off the ground, you want to encourage yourself to hit down on the ball. Okay, with the driver, we put it on a big tee. We actually want to feel we're hitting a little bit up on the golf ball. So why do we do that? Well, let's bring the club in a little bit closer to the camera. So if we've got a golf ball, and there's our club. Anytime you are making a descending blow with the club, you're increasing the chance your backspin will increase. Okay, and that looks a good thing when you're hitting an iron, but actually with the driver, everybody comes to me and says, I'd like to hit it further. We want to reduce the backspin. So that's the reason, one, we put it on a tee peg. The second thing, what I call natural loft of the club, so you're getting the loft of the club encouraging the ball up. We want to hit a little bit more flatter through the ball. Even you might hear the expression, you want to hit a little bit up on the ball. And that will reduce the backspin. Hitting that way, the ball will still have backspin because you've got the loft and it hitting below the center line of the ball, but it will make the ball spin smaller. If you're hitting down on the golf ball, you're going to create more backspin. So we need to understand that's how the club's designed. And depending then on the clubhead speed that you're generating is the right loft that you want on your club and the right shaft and how that's going to help you to work. So the average golfer probably swings a driver somewhere between 90 and 95 miles an hour. That's a male golfer. And if you're doing that, you've probably got a chance to get the driver working. Okay, if you get a good enough shaft in the club, a regular shaft, that'll work for you. But one of the common things I get from golfers is they come to me and they say, I can hit my 3-wood just as far as my driver. We're going to show you a little bit why that is the case. Okay, because of mainly the loft of the golf club and how you're then striking the golf ball. So really for me, unless you're swinging this club at around about, let's say 100 miles an hour or more, do you really want a driver of say, let's say 9.5, 10 degrees? If you're swinging slower than that, having something near 12 degrees, or as you said, you've had more success with your 3-wood, you may find that's a little bit more successful when you go to the golf course. And nowadays, if you look around, you might find a 12 degree, 13 degree driver. I know TaylorMade made a club going back a few years ago, which was about a 14 degree. People are having a lot of success with that. So getting the right equipment in your bag is important. Again, if you're having more success with the 3-wood, don't let your ego take over. Realize if that works, it works. Stick with it. Okay, we'll come to tempo later on. I was talking to one of our members a few days ago, and he was sort of talking how he can hit the fairway wood quite nicely, but he doesn't really hit the driver much further. But he feels the ego's taking over. We'll come to that a little bit later on in the clip. So let's look at how we want to use the driver and how we're going to help us hit the ball. Now, the most important thing, you want to hit the golf ball out of the middle of the club face. That's going to give you the best results. That's the sweet spot of the club. We want to get the best performance from that position. So we're going to look at the setup and how the driver, by hitting slightly up on the ball, we need to make a very subtle change in our setup to give us the opportunity to get the desired result. So put in an orange stick here, and we're just going to relate to this in two ways to start with. So we're going to talk about ball position, and then we'll talk about how that's going to affect your swing as you go through the shot. So if you're hitting, say, an iron, you would place that ball quite central in your stance, and the idea behind that is you're going to make more of a downward strike into the ball. And that's good because that will give you good energy, it will give you backspin, it will give you the result you want. We don't want that backspin when we're hitting a driver. So, as you're probably encouraged to do, we want to put the ball nearer your front foot, just inside your front heel. And what that encourages now is that club, the swing, is going to hit a little bit later. So naturally I'm hitting a little bit more the bottom of the arc just before the ball, and now the club is on the way up. And that's going to help to reduce the backspin. That's what we want. So that's an important thing to do to give you a good chance. The second thing from this angle, what's important is we want to make sure that club, when it sits on the ground, is sitting nice and flat on its bottom. We talked about club head speed. if your club head speed is, as I said, around 90 miles an hour, and you start altering the club face, especially closing the face down, maybe to stop a slice, the likelihood is now you're not generating enough power for that loft to actually help the ball up into the air. So really, really important that you let that club sit naturally on the ground and build everything around that position to give you that opportunity. Now, this is really key for me. This was something, as a junior golfer, I was a very straight hitter, but I wasn't the longest hitter, and I wondered why. And I felt like I was swinging it as fast as all my mates, but they were 20, 30 yards further down the hole than me. And it's something that I never realized until really probably started teaching golf, because I was never taught this, is how important that ball position is, but how it alters the club face and where you're striking the ball off the face of the club. So when we move the ball forward, as we said, the low point of the swing is just slightly before the ball. You're slightly on the up as you go through. You're not going to take a divot, but you're just now slightly on the up. And what we're going to show you with this stick, and this is why we're using this today, is if I set up and I put the middle of the club in line with the stick, and I'm going to exaggerate this, and I feel like I'm hitting up on the ball, what would happen is I'm now going to come in and hit up through the ball. Now, if we lift that club up, you can see near enough the middle of the shaft here is in line with the stick. Now, I'm not going to lift that amount because I'm not on a T-peg that high, but on a T-peg that's maybe 2 inches, an inch, inch and a half in the air there, and I come in, what's going to happen is I'm now going to hit more out of the heel of the club. So unknown to me for years, and I'm talking about probably playing from the age of 12 to 15 or 16, I was hitting 90% of my shots out of the heel of the club. And because I had a drawing swing and I hit it out the heel, they actually slightly counteracted each other, and I started hitting the ball very straight. So psychologically, you think I'm hitting it straight, must be good, but I'm 20, 30 yards behind the other guys. So what I would then try and do is create more power, and then I'd miss-hit the ball even worse. So what we've got to realize is, and what I would sort of use as an example, one of the big hitters out there at the moment is a guy called Bryson DeChambeau. And if you ever watched DeChambeau's technique, what he does when he addresses the ball with his driver, he seems to get up into the position here, and he'll set up hovering the club where the height of the driver is, and he's got the middle of the club in line with the middle of the ball, and then he relaxes. And what you can see now is it looks like the ball is much more out of the toe of the club. But what he knows is when he makes the correct swing, that club, because it's going to be higher, will now come back into the middle of the ball, into the middle of the club face. And I look back at all the players when I was younger, and it always looked like when they set up to the driver, is they would set up there, it looked like they were just slightly stretching to get to it, and then they'd relax. And it always seemed like they were teeing the ball up fractionally out the toe of the club. Once I knew the fact as soon as I hit up on the ball, it's actually going to throw the club a little bit away from me, I found then I started to find the centre of the club. Now I could trust my swing. What I found to start with, I probably slightly overdrew the ball, because what we realise is the face of the club is designed in a way that it's actually slightly rounded, what we call roll and bulge on the face of the club. And if you hit out the heel of the club, it slightly encourages a fade. Okay, if you hit out the toe, it generally encourages a little bit of a draw. So I had a drawing swing, but with a fading contact. The two counteracted each other, and somehow I ended up going pretty straight down the middle of the fairway. But as I said, I lost power. As soon as I found the centre of the club, the power increased, but initially I found I started to overdraw it. So then I would work on my swing to reduce that slightly. I still wanted a little bit of draw, but didn't want to get into a situation where I was doing too much shade. So a little bit understanding your equipment, understanding how the setup and the swing that you're developing can create the shape of shot you want, or maybe what you don't want. So priority here is we're looking at ball position. We set up to it. As we always say to you, find your relaxed posture, get yourself comfortable there. So now what I do is my relaxed posture feels as if the toe of the club is there. Now what I can do is I can lift that club up, do a DeChambeau little checkpoint. Think there, I'm nicely got that there. Let it relax. What I've got to trust now is as I swing, as that club comes back down and hits that point, I'm going to hit much more the centre of the club. And that's why I would always encourage golfers, if you can, if you're looking to work on your power and create a much straighter drive, is if you tee the ball up and work with this idea, you will find it easier to reduce the backspin. It's the launch angle that gives you the height. You're not creating backspin on the shot by hitting down on the golf ball. So that's really important that we get that feeling when you start. So we've talked a little bit about their setup, ball position, how important that is. We've talked about the club and how it's designed and how that will work for us. Now, what's really then important for me is thinking about each shot. Now, as you develop your shot, first of all, what do you want the ball to do? Okay, I always wanted to slightly hit a little bit of a draw. Always felt that maximised my power when I played my shots. So everything I've developed is to create a draw. If you want to fade it, create a swing that fades the ball. Okay, as long as the shape isn't too big, a fade or a draw, you're not going to change the distance that much. If it's a 2 or 3 yard fade, 2 or 3 yard draw, you're going to do okay. It's only when that ball starts to shape a lot more, let's say it turns into a slice, that's when you may be losing a lot of power. So the vision of shot and what you work on in your swing is so important to get the shape that fits your swing, fits your game. And then the key thing, which is again, one of these members was mentioning to me, was tempo. He always feels he picks up the driver and he tries to hit the ball a lot harder. He feels he needs to guarantee that distance. He might hit his fairway wood 200, 210, really good one might hit it 220. And he feels, well, there's no point in me hitting this club if I don't at least hit it 230, 240, 250. Now this guy is a 15, 16 handicap golfer. He doesn't need to be hitting the ball 260. In fact, if he could hit that fairway wood consistently 210 off the tee, he'd be doing better than his 16 handicap. But the thing that he's trying to do is guarantee this is going to give him more. So the importance is, if you are successful with a club, for me, I've always had a forward in my bag and I always seem to find a nice rhythm and tempo with it. So what I look to do when I pick up my driver, the days where I can feel that rhythm and tempo with the forward, I tend to have a good day with the driver. And because I'm then hitting it solidly off the center of the club, I'm maximizing my distance. Okay, so it's a little bit of a mental picture. When you set up to the shot, is have a few swings. Think it is your forward in your hand. Find that tempo. Okay, and in finding that feeling, when I walk into the ball, it's not the sudden urge, oh, I've got to hit it further. It's saying the club is designed to hit it further for me. Let's allow it to happen. Okay, so got these ideas now. I've worked on my setup, so I'm now coming back, as we always encourage you to do. One of my earlier videos was smaller target, bigger the fairway. And I'm going to walk in, visualize something right in the distance. From there, bring it in. I'm always focusing on that point. Now, as I said, tee it up a little bit out of the toe, because that hitting up position. And then from that point, all I'm going to do is think forward tempo, nice and rhythmical. Felt right out the middle of the club. Yep, I'll be happy with that. Hitting that probably around about 240 carry, run out to maybe 260. Okay, but a nice rhythmical swing. And the good thing is when you feel you're hitting out the middle of the club, it gives you confidence. So you'll go to your next shot, whether it's a drive on the next hole or even just an iron into the green, and you'll feel confident in yourself to go ahead and repeat that shot. I hope those tips regarding the driver help you. I look forward to seeing you soon. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.